It was not so long ago. At one of the popular academies, 3 young men discussed the recent transfer of a new student. It is clear from the conversation that they are skeptical. To transfer to this prestigious academy, the girl passed a very difficult exam. The students continued to discuss the beautiful appearance of the new student. The topic of the day was the choice of the transferred girls' club. In a new educational institution, it is customary to immediately apply to one of the existing groups. Rumors in the academy spread very quickly, but no one has yet heard about the choice of the new one. Young people assumed that she simply did not have time to apply as the collection ended yesterday. Everyone was very engrossed in the discussion and did not notice the fight between the other students, which inadvertently affected them as well. Another student passing by, hearing the discussion, asked if they knew the new student's name. Academy Arena. It has this name in honor of its founder. The only educational It does not matter whether you are an aristocrat or a commoner, you have the right to attend the academy only after passing the exam. Its graduates became famous in various fields thanks to their talents. At the Arena Academy, special attention is paid to the place where the student can express himself. These places are called clubs. For this reason, every student must join one of the active clubs. Having passed the transfer exam well, Lean found herself in the spotlight. Despite her background, she was able to achieve. A new student stood near the bulletin board and tried to choose one of the groups. A large list of clubs with funny names did not give rest. The girl could not have thought that the choice would be so difficult. Standing at the blackboard, Leon thought about applying to the club, about deadlines that had already passed, about friends she didn't have yet. Club activities have a great influence on the student's assessment, so it is necessary to choose one of them. The girl entrusted this choice to fate, and for now it is necessary to go out into the yard. 13. There were many students in the yard. Everyone was talking to each other, laughing. The girl stood aside and regretted that she had moved here recently. After all, most students have known each other for several years. Deep in thought, Leon did not notice how one of the students approached her and asked if she was new. Confused, the girl told the lie, and then asked why he was looking for her. But the young man had already run in the other direction, shouting to her that something had happened. After all, the guy was in such a hurry that he did not pay attention to the girl's badge, on which her name is written. Leon stood for some time, wondering who might need her, because she didn't know anyone here yet. I went out to the yard to get some fresh air, met a strange guy, and I haven't chosen a club yet. Suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted by a voice behind her. Returning, the girl saw a handsome guy who offered her to join his club. A handsome man stood in front of her, tall, with wavy pale pink hair, big shining eyes, beautiful lips. He held the application form in his hands and suggested that she enter her name there. After all, the young man heard that the new girl has not yet chosen a club. Leon understood that the application deadline had expired. She asked if he knew it, at which the handsome man smiled and informed that the meeting of the club would be held tomorrow, and so the girl still has time. The student continued to insist on signing, but Leon, without answering anything, turned to go. Confused by this behavior, the boy asked why she was leaving. After all, the deadlines for submitting applications have ended only for existing clubs, and they are creating a new one. You only need to enter your name, the girl thought. Did she need this particular circle? Everything had to be weighed carefully. Looking at the boy, she understood that he was a local celebrity. If she accepts his proposal, she will be tired all the time. And the girl just wanted to finish the academy in peace, especially since she didn't even know what the club was. Therefore, she refused to sign. I looked again into his sad eyes. The boy continued to plead for help. After all, 3 signatures are needed to open a new circle, and they only have 2, including his. The stranger's eyes seemed to glow with hope. They were so deep and blue, begging for help. The girl entered her name, although she herself was not delighted with this idea. The guy shouted to Leon to come to the club tomorrow. And she, leaving, only clenched her fists and scolded herself for succumbing to the persuasions of the handsome man. The young man stood for some time and looked at her signature, not believing in success. After all, he did not think that opening a new circle would be so difficult. Actually, starting a new club is not that difficult. It was not a difficult task for Carcion. He was only annoyed by the girls who followed him from club to club. That's why the idea to create your own club appeared. The rumor that Carcion and his friend Fjord were going to open their own circle quickly spread around the academy. After all, they were the best students. Many would like to join their club because it could make the school years a lot easier. Therefore, when choosing the third participant, there were long discussions among friends. After all, I didn't want to take anyone into my circle. Having learned about a new girl with good grades, the choice stopped on her. Remembering a recent conversation with a stranger, the boy realized that he was very scared when she started to refuse. After all, he is so handsome. All the girls at the academy dream of him. And the newcomer did not immediately agree to his proposal. The guy thought that she had bad eyesight if she didn't see such a beautiful face. The first meeting of the club. All participants sit at the table and look at each other. Finally, Karshan asked if Lian really had bad eyesight. After learning that her eyesight was normal, he could not understand what was the matter. By that time, the girl had already learned that there were bad rumors about Karshan. It was said that during sword training, he attacked a person with magic, which is forbidden. Lian looked at him and thought that maybe the guy seemed good enough for her to join the club. But he still doesn't look like an aggressive person. He was more of a grump than a bad guy. Fjord introduced himself to the girl and smiled sweetly. I asked if I could call her by name. After getting to know each other, Lian asked what the club's theme was, what they would do at the meeting. Karsian rudely replied that their group did not have any particular type of occupation, so she could do whatever she wanted. Points for the club will be obtained by destroying demons. He added that the boys would take care of it themselves, and she was there only for the number, so that she would behave quietly and not interfere. Upon hearing this, the girl got up from her chair and came so close to Karshan that her breathing could be heard. Surprised by her audacity, the boy jumped up and rudely shouted for her not to approach. Lian looked calm. She apologized to him, calling the boy by his name. What got a new wave of aggression? She understood that the boy pretended to be nice and kind, because she even forbids him to be called Karshan. Calmly turning around, the girl headed towards the chairs that stood along the wall. Fjord asked where she was going. He seemed amused by this situation. Just as Karshan forbade her to be called by name, Lian said that the pink head told her to rest, which she did. She lay down on a chair that was hardly standing. This situation amused both the girl and Fjord. Only Karshan was angry and confused. For some time, they looked into each other's eyes, as if demonstrating that they were not ready to yield. Lying on the chairs, Lian asked if there was anything to say to her. Turning away, Karshan quietly answered that there was not. Starting to flirt with him, the girl beckoned with her finger, making it clear that she has something to report. As soon as the boy leaned over, she breathed into his ear. It seemed like an innocent gesture, but Karshan, of course, did not like it. Jumping away from her, he said that she was out of her mind. Lian was not insulted, and his words were not affected in any way. She even liked how he got angry and how he reacted to her play. Seeing the girl smile, he tried to cover her mouth with his hand so as not to see her mocking. Not confused, the girl licked his hand. What caused a wave of indignation? Karshan did not expect this, especially from an unfamiliar girl. He is used to no one objecting to him and doing as he orders. Seeing a playful smile, he realized that she was not like other girls. Will not obey. But he still did not understand how to behave with her. Lian, watching the boy's reaction, realized that he was not bad, but just arrogant. After all, it is so easy to bring him out of balance. Continuing the game, the girl said that his hand was salty, and she thought it would be sweet. Karshan jumped away from her. He was at a loss for words to express all his surprise and incomprehension of why she was doing this. Sitting in front of him was not the same stranger whom he had invited to his club yesterday. He saw the devil himself, who mocked him so terribly. Watching this game, Fjord asked what they were doing, thus reminding that there are 3 of them in the room. Academy Arena is based on the belief that everyone is equal before knowledge, which is why it is strictly forbidden to talk about your social status on the territory of the educational institution. This is exactly what the girl liked even before she was transferred here. Suddenly, Lian turned her attention to a symbol on the chair. She had seen one before. She asked Karshan what this symbol of the Duke of Lycian was doing here. After all, it is forbidden to talk about social statuses in the academy. Of course, not all rules were followed, but these are obvious bragging rights of their origin. As if not understanding the hint, the boy remarked that the chair was more comfortable than rough chairs. The girl supported his sarcasm and added that he didn't care what hard chairs she was lying on. Karshan, getting angry again, asked if she would continue to mock him. He said that from their first meeting, he could not understand what was in her mind. It only amused the girl. She wanted to see more of his different reactions because even when he was raging, he looked so cute. As if speaking to himself, the boy added that he would find the answer to his question if he looked into her head, to which Lian happily asked if he wanted to try it now. Turning away from her, Karshan muttered that he did not. The guy sat impassively at the table and drank tea. The girl got up, came and sat opposite, wanting to continue the dialogue. She opened her book and continued reading. Karshan asked why she sat down at the table, because the chair with the symbol was much more comfortable. Surprised, the girl answered that the place is not only for him, because the symbol of his family is on the chair, and therefore it is his property. But since the boy allowed, Lian happily flew onto the couch like a bird. She immediately noticed that the furniture is as soft and comfortable as clouds. Karshan sat at the table and laughed, covering his face with his hands. The girl asked what he noticed so funny. He liked her reaction to the comfortable furniture. Even the facial expression has changed to a much kinder one. This time, you won't be able to look into her head as you can read everything on her face. The girl noticed that she had relaxed a little, but was no longer so mysterious. Suddenly, Karshan clicked 2 fingers, and immediately a warm, comfortable blanket appeared, which gently fell on the girl's lap. Surprised by such a gesture, she asked what had changed, that he had become so kind and even gave her a blanket. The guy quietly told her to go to bed, but the girl did not calm down and decided to ask if he liked her breath in his ear. Seeing how Karshan again moved his eyebrows to the heap, she decided to keep silent and leave him alone for today. Closing her eyes, the girl scrolled through the latest events in her head. She really liked the guy. He was like a pink, cute. Without opening her eyes, she said aloud that now she understood everything. She said that she had heard various rumors that he killed people before entering the academy, and sorry for believing it. Although later, it turned out that all the rumors about the boy seemed to evaporate, but so quickly, as if someone had a hand in it. The night passed. In the morning, while Lian was still sleeping, the boys came to the club. Having opened the door, Karshan stood and looked at the sleeping beauty. Fjord noticed that the friend had changed and asked if it was about the girl. He wondered why he cared so much about her, to which he heard a false answer, as if the girl. Fjord smiled and asked how long it would take. The friend replied that a week. Karshan added that Lian woke up. I saw young guys nearby. I thought that Karshan was the most beautiful. The guy noticed that the blanket had slipped from the girl's legs. He approached and carefully placed the blanket on her. Lian couldn't help asking why he did it. After all, in the evening, this pink-haired guy was not so friendly to her. The girl continued to annoy him since the morning and asked where he got his angel wings. Fjord, watching them, realized that the two of them liked this game, although they did not admit it to themselves. Lian, covering herself with her hand, laughed and said that he really began to treat her better. Karshan, getting angry again, thundered that it would be better for her to continue sleeping and not annoy him. Stretching, the girl said that she was in a good mood, just the kind to finish reading her book. Looking around the room, she saw Fjord and realized that she didn't know much about him. She only heard that he is always in a good mood, friendly, smiling. What is very surprising. The girl stood up and asked what he was reading. Fjord honestly answered that he was repeating the material. Bending over him, the girl imperceptibly stepped on his shoe and at the same second threw it up. The shoes flew across the table and fell far away from them. Fjord screamed in surprise. She calmly followed the shoe and said that her parents were always playing jokes on her. Fjord, as if clarifying, asked if she jokes every time she is bored, and then he added whether he would throw his shoe out the window. Lian held up the shoe and mockingly asked if it wasn't the golden-haired prince of the academy who lost the shoe. At which they both laughed. The girl put shoes on Fjord and offered to reconcile. Karshan watched this action. He didn't like it very much. Clenching his fists, he thundered at them. Surprised by such conclusions, she asked why he thought so. The boy continued to embarrass her. He said that she fell to her knees. Making excuses, Lian replied that it was just a joke. He should not have reacted so sharply to him. Fjord, trying to catch up with Karshan, asked why he was behaving so strange. The comrade tried to ask him for something, but it was all in vain. Finally, Karshan replied that it did not matter. Several weeks have passed since joining the club. Lian sat on a bench in the garden and thought that when she transferred to this academy, She was so good and calm, and most importantly fun. But on the other hand, it's so hard to hang out with the most Rumors circulated throughout the academy because it is a closed political environment, a small secular world. The girl was very careful even when she went to the club. Young people continued to insult her, as if she has nothing but good looks, and no one needs her like that. Suddenly, one student leaned over Lian and began to prove something in a rude manner. She waved her hands in front of her. It was clear why she allowed herself to do this. After all, the uniform of the academy. But the main thing is that they had a feeling of superiority over the girl. Wealthy children have always behaved. Finally, Lian said that all those rumors were true. She is really in the club with the guys that this mean girl. The unknown student continued to shout and insult. She said that it doesn't matter how she got to that club, but she won't stay there. Lian sat silently, but thought that this unknown girl did not know everything. Holding the book close to her, the girl understood that she was not equal to them. After all, most of the students are from wealthy families, but she is not. The students demanded an explanation as to why she was in their club, to which the smiling girl replied that because of the pretty faces. After all, such a frank answer received a wave of insult. She was told that it was impossible. She must have mistakenly thought that it would always be like this. But wealthy guys are not her level, and soon everyone poking her finger in her chest, she reminded that insects have no place here, and that she, as an equal, will never be accepted by other students. Lian replied that she understood. And what about them? Are they equal to those guys? She didn't know who she was talking to. After all, in front of her stood the heiress of Countess. The girl was made to understand that they all have very wealthy families. If she doesn't want her house demolished, let her get down on her knees. Lian, slowly getting up, asked their names. They were Stella, Harold, thereby making room in front. The girl took advantage of this. She quickly ran away from the offenders, who did not have time to understand what. Turning, she shouted to them that they would not overtake her. I already had a plan in my head, what to do next. Teacher's office. All silently listened to the audio recording brought by Lian. One of the mentors said that it was very good that it was all written down. After all, Lian thanked. She added that she was very frightened by the behavior of her classmates, but she still had to tell. After all, she herself believed in the rules of the academy laid down by its founder, and they should be sacred for every student. With such respect for the commandments, she swayed all the teachers present to her side. After all, this meant that she was the girl was walking along the corridor and thought that she expected such excessive attention to her. I calmed myself down. She is so well done. Passed an extremely difficult. For some reason, the legs began to wobble. She stopped. I went to the club room thinking that covering herself with such a familiar blanket, the girl tried to calm down, but recent events kept popping up in front of my eyes. Now she wanted only one thing, to hug her parents. When she was 10 years old, trouble came into her life. Parents fell serious. A little girl started studying medical botany herself to help her parents. She didn't give up. Every day, I looked for medicinal plants in every nook and cranny, thinking that they would help. But the parents were getting... Until, in the end, all hopes died with their parents. She remained alone in the whole white world. She stayed in the room for almost a year. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to meet anyone. She didn't go anywhere. She finally realized that hope made her like this. After all those efforts, there is no point in being sad because Karshan and Fjord are aristocrats, and she is a common. It is good that there is no one in the club room. The girl did not want anyone to see her so depressed. Sitting on the sofa, Lian thought about the boys. What good friends they were. But after graduation, they are unlikely to be friends, or even communicate. There is no point. There was only one reason why she managed to master the academy so quickly. This is thanks. Remembering her abusers, the girl realized that one audio. This is not a big request to Fjord. Having caught up with him in the court, night has come. Somewhere on the territory of the academy, Fjord insisted that his friend's handsome face contributed to this. Meanwhile, rumors about the expulsion of several students have already spread around the academy. Fjord noticed how his friend lovingly repeated his words about the face. He muttered to himself that during the first meeting, and in general, she behaved as if she was not interested in him at all. Fjord finally interrupted his musings, saying that he was confused by a friend, especially when he saw how he became confused, remembering the girl. After all, she constantly affected him. She said various things with an impudent expression on her face. He seemed to be used to the daily abuse that affected his pride. She knew how to surprise him. Only one could talk to him like that. She was not afraid to pick on him. He was interested in what she was thinking about when she was playing with him. Is he happy when It seems that the comrade is right. Leon will have to endure his obsession. All those memories of her, torn from memory, swirled in my head like fragments of one whole. Her facial expression, sometimes clumsy movements. On the first day when Karshan returned to the dormitory, he kept thinking about her. After everything mentioned, he decided that feeling would disappear when he would fix everything. House of the Duke of Lysiansky, the magic of movement in space. This is an extremely difficult spell that requires a lot of mana. Fortunately, Karshan, who possessed an extraordinary magical talent, his arrival was heard by the servants. They entered the room and were surprised to see the host at such a late hour. They asked what he was doing here and offered to replace his bed, in case the owner stayed the night. Without answering their questions, he coldly ordered to bring a warm blanket. Without hesitating the manager of the estate did not immediately understand what Mr. wanted. Perhaps when he brought it, he immediately asked who it was for. Maybe to cover someone. The servant said that he would have to inform the Duke about this so that he could remove it. Karshan remembered the first night in the club room, how he moved the sofa out of his house with a space spell. Only wizards of the highest, depending on a person's capabilities, everything can be stored there. Then, not yet knowing her reaction, the boy wondered whether the girl would like the couch. This is still much better than collecting chairs and investing in them. In addition, the sofa is made by the best craftsmen. Liane should be comfortable on it. She will be able to enjoy a nap in the club room. And if you also cover her with a blanket, she will be able to rest under the warm. Having sobered up from romantic thoughts, the boy began to reproach himself. After all, a girl should like him, not a sofa with a blanket. And in general, she annoys. And on the other hand, if his new passion is convenient, he will stop thinking about it and focus on more useful things. Karshan couldn't understand why she still got on his nerves. After all, his heart was breaking out of his chest, and he could not control it. He remembered all those moments when he was most angry. How she breathed in his ear, how she broke the pyramid, how she took his cheek. She justified her actions by saying that she did not think that it would affect him. Karshan replied that it was no use apologizing, because he also plays with her academy, women's dormitory. Lian woke up in her room after a bad dream, as if she hadn't slept. Suddenly she heard a knock. I thought that it must be a student who distributes handouts. She lay down on the bed again so as not to open it. The night terror did not allow her to sleep at all, and it was painful to stay in bed even a little longer. But the knocking on the door grew louder. Overcoming her reluctance to get up, the girl did open the door. Karshan was standing behind the door. What she did not expect was to see him so early. She immediately slammed the door in the boy's face. Not having fully woken up from sleep, I thought that maybe it was her in the men's dormitory. I decided that it was delusional. You need to open and make sure. Slamming the door again, she stood covering her face with her hands. I didn't want to believe. The girl caught herself thinking that the boy called her by her name. After all, before he did, having opened the door of the room a little, she asked the pink-haired man why he had come. Maybe without hearing anything. I wondered why he was silent. Is it so difficult to answer? But this is Karshan himself, a real celebrity. If anyone sees him, quickly opening it, she grabbed his hand and pulled him, slamming the door. Without letting go of his hand, she immediately asked why he had come. Apparently, they have big problems if he appeared so suddenly. As if not hearing what she was saying, the boy asked why she was still holding her hand. He is already in her room and can be released. Lian apologized because she remembered that Karshan does not like to be touched. She said she was just in a hurry. The guy confirmed that he really doesn't like it, as well as the fact that she calls him by his first name. He turned away. He continued to say that something must be changed. From this moment, the girl stood and listened attentively. But in her head, he looked like a cute, fluffy kid. Karshan asked what surprised her so much. Leon says that they met recently. He could not like her in such a short period. This is not the first time the girl feels something like this. If Karshan really wanted to be closer to her, more than just a friend, she didn't want that at all. It is better to leave everything at a distance. She knew that waiting only left scars. Then she laughed out loud. It was as if the bells rang for the boy in the middle. He wanted to record her laugh and voice and listen to it every day. He noted Leon called out his name, Kaon. He was pleased to hear her pronounce it. And at the same time, it's uncomfortable. The girl came close and held out her hand. The boy stood and did not move. She gently touched his cheek. She looked into deep. Kaon noticed a tear on her face. The girl answered what he thought. To forget and not worry. Excited by what he saw, he promised that he would take care of everything. Leon stood with folded hands. I thought he was still. Shortly before that in the club room, Fjordline asked for a favor. I gave him a recording of the The girl asked to use the copy so that everyone The boy noted that the girl turned out to be much smarter than he had initially thought about her. After all, many students have already heard about the incident. If the mentors were also aware, Fjord sat at the chess table and thought that But recording is not enough to eradicate the problem. The girl is smart and guessed about it herself. Such is the aristocratic. In his opinion, this will not be a problem. After all, Leon became the object in the academy. Everyone was discussed. 3 students stood and were indignant. They didn't like the fact that because of some. After all, previously, the head did not But the most suspicious thing was that all the family savings of this trio collapsed almost simultaneously. Some aristocrats had an earthquake while the workers were at home. In another aristocratic family, the ship got into a. Leon sat on the sofa in the club room and felt sorry for those families. After all, she felt sorry for them, even though they offended. Perhaps the hand of justice really hung over them. But they gossiped about her as well. The students thought that if they contacted Leon, the Fjord was soothing. He said, what is the difference? She is still in the academy and in the club. But that's not it. Of course, the girl wanted to have friends. Leon did not even communicate with her fellow students. Everything in her life was as her thoughts were interrupted by a beautiful flower that appeared out of nowhere. Raising her head, the girl saw Karshan, who was leaning over her, holding a rose. She was very pleased. But this excessive attention, so far, was not wanted. She said that you don't have to pick flowers just to show them to her. After slightly changing her tone to a kinder one, she added, since the flower is already plucked, it should be put in a vase. Karshan rejoiced, smiled, and teleported behind a vase. The girl asked why he was using a teleport, when you could just ask her for a vase. Fjord immediately answered her rhetorical question. Said Karshan. The girl thought. After all, lately, Karshan has already brought 5 colorful blankets to the girl. She likes them. But Leon did not want to quarrel with Kaon. But deep in her soul, she hoped that they would remain friends for as long as possible. The girl decided to play a little more. But she said, as if to herself, if she leaves them. The joke worked. Fjord laughed and replied that he hadn't given her flowers yet, and she already considered him a friend. Instead, Kaon was scared when he heard that she might leave them. I decided to clarify. If he knows her a little longer than his friend, does it mean that they are closer? But there was no difference. For a girl, it didn't matter who was closer. But Leon understood that it was impossible to answer directly. Therefore, she gave an allegory, the meaning of which is that the boy, hearing this, blushed and turned away. It was unpleasant for him to hear such a thing from the. Seeing this reaction, Leon tried to correct herself, saying that it was all. The girl tried to get her suitor out of this state. She asked if Kaon wanted something more than just companionship. And then the boy waved his hands, frowned. But he couldn't even think about getting close to her. You can't fool that girl. She understood that the suitor had already managed to think about marriage in such a short period. I wanted to diffuse the tense situation. Leon told the boys that they were her only friends at this academy, and that was why she liked it. Karshan did not calm down, but asked if she had other friends. Academy. Women's dormitory. Leon walked down the hall and thought Kaeon's main job was to drive potential. When the girl entered the room, she saw a large box. The unknown girl's name was Jane. She was a new roommate. The new acquaintance also has 1 year left at the academy. As it turned out, they studied in the same class with Leon. The girls sat on their beds and talked. Leon said it was nice. Jane replied that she learned her name only from the sign. I asked to address her not so officially. After all, with all their friends, they say you. The girls will live in the same room, so it is better to address each other informally. You should do everything for maximum convenience. Both agreed on this. After all, it will be better that way. Jane, the new roommate, and long-awaited new friend. Now they will take care of each other. The next morning, the girls woke up almost at the same time. Suddenly, Jane turned to Lena, smiled playfully, and winked. She said that she had what surprised me a lot, because it was still quite early. They were both sitting on their beds and reaching out. Leon asked what she was planning to do. So interesting. Maybe when she was going to return to the academy, she was in a great hurry. Now it was clear what kind of interesting plan. Jane asked if Leon wanted to keep her company while shopping. What pleased the girl very much, and she immediately agreed. In the middle of the city, there was a shopping street where you could find everything. The girls went there as soon as they got together. It was the first time for a girl who had no girlfriend. Leon felt a rush of joy but no matter what she shouted, the girls approached every little thing with full responsibility. Everything was carefully selected. It doesn't matter if it was a net handkerchief or a cute table lamp or a simple, beautiful. If Leon had been shopping alone, she would not. The girls drew attention to the long line for cookies. They decided, having approached the counter with cookies, they realized that the selection is very large. Jane saw cakes with walnuts, pumpkin, blueberry jam. A new friend started a conversation about boys. If the guy does not have such qualities, Leon will simply ignore. After talking about her ideal, she asked her friend what she thought about this. After all, the main thing now is to find a common language for further understanding of each. After all, there are not so many people in the academy with. Leaning over, Jane asked if Leon had a good boyfriend, which fits her idea of the ideal. For example, clubmates. There should also be good, popular guys, those that fit the description and imagination of the girl. To be more precise, Fjord, it was obvious that Jane was interested in him. She started this conversation with one goal, to learn more about him. Leon immediately began to deny any connection with this man. After all, it was the truth, and she was more interested in his friend. That friend did not believe, and she continued to hint that there was something between them. That Jane was walking along the corridor at night. She thought about the previous day spent with her new friend. I remembered her smiling face, kind, compliant character. What a nice day they spent together. Leon is a good person, and most likely she will be a good friend. It was obvious that something was oppressing the girl. Suddenly, Karshan appeared in front of her. Jane did not like to tell everything about her new friend, but the owner did not leave her a choice. It is hard to believe, but their meeting was carefully planned. The girl asked what actions she should. She understood that only Karshan was asking the question here. Seeing that he was in a bad mood, At classes, the girls sat at one desk. They were constantly laughing, talking about something. Jane noted that although there was a 2-year hiatus, the girls took out the purchased cookies and decided to have a snack. Leon was in a hurry to be on duty, so they quickly unpacked and reviewed. No matter what flavor Jane liked, it still ended up in the bag. She bought too much. My friend wanted to taste all kinds of cookies, so there were so many of them. Jane found a way out. Having completed a good deed, she approached Leon and asked if she. The teacher's voice rang out suddenly. He asked if any of the students were celebrating Cookie Day. After all, inventive children added a charm potion to treats, and others were poisoned by it. That is why the students secretly exchanged treats, so that the teachers did not see and did not punish. Despite the ban, cookies appeared. Leon had never heard of such a holiday before. Therefore, without suspecting anything, I bought sweet. Jane insisted that her friend treat the boy she liked with cookies. After all, it is customary to do so on this holiday, for example, to treat someone from the club. After thinking for a while, she answered that it was not a very good idea. You shouldn't do it. Because such a gesture can lead to bad consequences, and in general, they are not so close. Without answering anything, Jane agreed with her in her heart. After all, it was nothing more than a... The girls walked down the corridor and discussed the difference in a difficult choice, and if it is the same, then the choice does not matter. On this note, they parted, each on their own business. Leon went to the club. Opening the door, she was horrified. The whole club was on fire. Fire was everywhere. Fjord was lying on the floor and was asking her for help. Above him stood Karsten with red eyes. His hands held fireballs. The whole room was on fire. The door suddenly slammed right in front of the girls. Opening them again, Leon saw a smiling Karsten in front of her. Not understanding anything, the girl asked whether Leon willingly believed the boy. After all, before there was no reason to doubt his words. He was still a playful kitten in her eyes. Looking at him, I understood that it is better not to focus on what I saw. After all, Karsten quickly changed the subject to another. He asked if she heard what... The girl replied that she had no idea about such a holiday before. She finds it a bit strange. She turned to the boys with a question. After all, they are celebrities. Fjord replied that he had been given many cookies. That was enough. But Karsten no longer accepts sweets as a gift, because he was caught in the past. While Leon was talking to Fjord, she did not notice that behind her stood a disgruntled Kaon. That's putting it mildly. It seemed that steam was coming from his ears from anger. His friend finally drew the girl's attention to him, but he told her to give Karsten a cookie to calm him down. Fjord thought how tired he was of his comrade's reproaches, and in general, where did he get that he likes this girl? Sitting comfortably on the sofa, Leon proposed to spend this day without sweets. In order not to feeling Kaon's gaze on her, the girl covered herself with a blanket. She guessed that the boy had been waiting for this holiday for a long time. After all, he so wanted to receive a gift from her as a sign of something more than friendship. She sat, covering her face with a blanket. There was complete silence in the room. Slowly raising her head, she looked around the room. Karsten was sitting behind the sofa, on the floor. He bowed his head. The girl really did not want to draw attention to this, but the boy was very upset. Not understanding what to do next, she turned her gaze to Fjord. He tried to show her something so that his friend would not notice it. He pointed to the table and whispered for her to look there. Kneeling down, the girl noticed a bag of cookies under the table, but she did not. She looked again at Fjord, who continued to wave his hands in the direction of his friend. The girl thought that before the boys seemed to her to be close friends, they always had fun together. She looked at him again. He stood with his hands folded in a lock. On the one hand, Fjord with a request for help. On the other hand, her reluctance to do so. Finally, she took that bag of sweets and tore it open. Inside, she took that bag, approached Karsten, and gave it to him. She added that it was a sign of their friendship. Not believing his eyes, the boy asked if it was really him. His face immediately changed. His joy knew no bounds. Watching him, Leon did not understand. After all, it's just a bag of cookies. And how much joy and sadness. Suddenly someone knocked on the door. They came to Fjord with another package of sweets. He's very popular among girls. Usually, no one comes to the club room while Karsten is in it. But today is a special day. Opening the cupboard, Fjord put a bag there. When Leon returned, she was very surprised, because she had never seen so many sweets in her life. The guy saw her reaction, said that there is nothing good in this. After all, you have to somehow get rid of it later. Everything will have to be thrown away. After all, he will not eat such a... The girl asked if he just throws away the cookies every time, to which Fjord replied that he had no choice. Even if he wants to taste it, he is afraid, because there might be a potion there. And indeed, this student, who had just brought the cookies, had very shaky hands. Maybe the boy's suspicions are not unfounded. Liane had a lot of sweets at home, and the comrade, even having such a pile, could not taste it. Without thinking long, she handed him a cookie, which he bought himself, so there was definitely no potion. Confused by such an act, Fjord asked why she gave it to him. Liane replied that it was just like that. Leaving them alone, the girl said that she had to go to the girls' room, and they, slowly closing the door, she saw Fjord's startled look and only the door closed. An explosion rang out in the club room. The girl was not very scared. When a wizard is very angry about something, his magic breakdown will be like an explosion. She understood that it was Kaon. She did not. Several days passed. The girl walked along the corridor and remembered recent events. She was pleased with her. We must return to normal school weekdays. George, professor of the class, did not like this message. Although the professor was very grumpy, he has a great talent for learning. He gives students a lot of information that cannot be found in books. It is said that the professor spent a long time perfecting the. It seems that not even half of them know about it. And all the fact that the children continued to discuss what exactly in groups. Professor George, there would be no problems with an individual task, and in a group, for Liane, it was an opportunity to get to know someone else, make new friends. That is why one of the students came up and asked if it was true that she replied that there is no basis for such statements, but the red-haired classmate did not believe her. Suddenly the professor asked, showing the list, "What does this mean?" In the Liane, thinking about Karshan, the girl was sure that he had no reason to love her. It is unlikely that he likes her that much. If you take into account everything and appearance, he is so perfect that even someone from the ruling dynasty can. The red-haired girl continued. She said that the rumors about them, most likely, are greatly overestimated. The girl could not leave this insult unpunished. She already had a plan. She will not allow strangers to speak so badly about her. The students knew that Liane studied well. Therefore, the redhead said that she was relying on her for today's group task. And she replied that she was grateful for her support, and ignoring her, Liane continued to speak. Given today's topic, the task must be performed somewhere in a remote area. It seems she knew such a place. An unfamiliar guy from the newly formed group agreed. The girl sat in the club room and was nervous because she did not understand how to manage such a group. Karshan noticed this and asked what. The girl replied that there was nothing wrong, her leg just hurt. To Liane's surprised reaction, he added that he did not mean anything bad. It's just taking care of her. The girl smiled, because she did not think that he was calling him cunning. She continued to talk about the rumors that had. Liane said that today in the group, a red-haired girl leaning over the girl, the boy asked if she liked such rumors. But she was more she could not say it directly, without tears. But the girl continued the topic and added that in the future, there may be problems with the bride due to such discussions. I am sure that he will still find a girl from a wealthy family. Karshan was glad that the girl was not upset by such. Suddenly, someone opened the door and announced that he had come to Liane. At the same second, Kaon used the force of moving in space. In a moment he was already standing at the door and was looking angrily at the screaming at the boy for daring to barge into their club. The girl ran up to them. Standing behind Kaon, she tried to smooth out the tense atmosphere. She reassured him, said that he scared the poor boy, who, most likely, came to find out how they will perform their group task. Liane asked Kaon to calm down a bit. She knew he didn't like it when anyone came to their club room, but this time it was related to the task. Feeling her hand on his shoulder, he immediately changed his tone. The girl approached her classmate and asked why he came so early. After all, they agreed to meet after the hours set aside. The boy reported that he has with sympathy in her voice, she advised, "Tomorrow we will have to work with the collected herbs. Therefore, it will be." The guy looked at her in fright all the time. He seemed to agree with everything she said just to leave. Liane did not understand the situation as it really was. She thought that the boy had not told the truth in order not to work with her in the same group. The broken and despairing girl returned to the room. A neighbor was. The girl apologized and added that she had to finish the group task. She returned to the Lian herself was not happy with the general task. It only brought her disappointment. My thoughts were interrupted by a neighbor who reported that the girl had received 2 letters. Taking them in her, it was forbidden to send letters with family seals to the academy, so others, in the shape of a bird, stood on them. The girl remembered that when she was little, she and her brothers and aunt were walking. In addition to the seal with the bird, Lian caught a subtle scent of lavender coming from the letters. Opening her drawer, the girl put new letters in a huge pile of old, unopened ones. But Lian had already plunged into deep memories. The girl, dressed in a change of clothes and ready to perform the group task, stood at the second member of the group, the third member of the group, whose name is still unknown, but flying past on his horse. He managed to tell her to delete his name from the group task, because the past beloved of his grandfather died. Well, if it's such a thing, then of course you have to go. This is your Determined to complete the group task herself, the girl set off. Everything can be done without other participants. Lian was covered with memories of her mother. She liked to walk on mountain paths. Earlier, she and her mother went to. After her parents died, the girl did not go there. The aunt was worried and did not let her alone. Nevertheless, she brought all the medicinal herbs to the girl that she wanted. Thanks to my aunt, studying became easier. If Lian had been younger when she got to her aunt and uncle, she would most likely have called them mom and dad. Now she regrets that she never called them her parents. After all, they loved her as a family member and even wanted to add her to the family. Having walked half the way, the girl ran into a fence. There was a sign nailed to it. Maybe the dangerous territory and the fence are not intact. Lian thought to herself and slipped into the hole. One of the main reasons why this task is done is also, herbs that grow in the wild are more effective than herbs grown by man. And to get better, you need to go to dangerous cities. Lian had no idea that she was being watched. She heard some rustling, but did not attach much importance to it. After all, it was in the middle of nowhere, far from the academy. Suddenly the girl saw a very rare flower, Dao Tranto. In the book about medicinal plants, it is written that the very difficulty of collection, due to the lack of useful properties, refers to the weed, but this plant can be used as a remedy for unpleasant odors. When Lian was still young, she created this formula for her father to use after intense training sessions. There is no demand for this medicinal plant, so it cannot be found in free sale. But luck smiled at the girl, and she found the territory where this flower grows. Although the girl was embarrassed by the unexpected find, she was always ready for a surprise. So she thought. While Lian was collecting rare flowers, trouble was already lurking behind. A large monster with red eyes, meter-long fangs, hooves and horns. Another second, and the girl would have paid bitterly for going into the danger zone alone. Suddenly, a voice from nowhere warned the girl to be careful. Everything happened so quickly that Lian didn't even understand anything and didn't have time to get scared. Another moment passed, and Karshan was already hugging her behind. What she did not expect at all. He held her very close to him, as if she were the most precious person in the world. For some time they sat without moving. Only later did the girl notice that the air was somehow very clean and cool. There is some strange density in it that cannot be gotten rid of. It was Karshan's breath. An incomprehensible tremor spread throughout her body. After regaining consciousness, the girl asked in surprise what he was doing here. She noticeably moved away from him. The answer was expected, because I saw how she herself went into dangerous territory. She understood that Kaon was very worried about her, so he followed. She continued to say that she was preparing for the task and could scare away the monster herself. If the boy had not interfered, the monster would not have attacked her, and so the unfortunate creature died and lies torn to pieces. Karshan got up, told her she didn't need to look at that and cast a vanishing spell. He added that she should look at beautiful things, such as him, and indeed, he looked, as always, beautiful, so perfect that it was annoying. Lian came too close. She quietly, almost in a whisper, asked if she should look at him every day. It suddenly rained. The girl managed to collect Dao Tranto and several other medicinal plants before they got wet. Looking around, she did not notice where the boy had gone. A little frightened, she called him. Being not a bad master of magic, he appeared out of nowhere, just like a fairy. The girl thanked that Karshan stopped the rain with his spell. She already thought that, most likely, she would get sick, because she did not have an umbrella. I asked where he had gone, to which the boy replied that he was trying to find a flower that would remind him of her. Unfortunately, there was none. Therefore, he brought her a rose that will remind her of him. The stunned girl took the flower and brought it to her face. After smelling the aroma, I realized that they are really somewhat similar to Kaon. After all, she is so beautiful and gentle, at the same time very prickly. When Leon was still small, they often climbed the mountains with their mother, holding hands. They walked there for a long time. My daughter learned a lot of new things, the names of animals, plants, and flowers that came across her eyes. And every time she asked, my mother answered in a calm voice, without a drop of irritation. After all, she loved her daughter and wanted to teach everything that she knew herself. One day, Leon asked her mother what pink roses meant. I remembered the answer for the rest of my life. Pink roses are passionate love. Her dad had given her many times. Karshan suggested returning to the academy because the rain had already ended. The dreamy girl recalled a memory from her childhood. She didn't tell anyone about the roses, and Kaon couldn't guess. Leon went to class and remembered the group assignment. After all, everyone from the group refused to do it together, and she had to do it alone. It's good that everything ended without incident because her suitor helped her. On the weekend, no one from the group helped, so she finished everything herself. This difficult work was designed for 4 people, but the girl did not take offense at them. Having met Hans at classes, Leon asked if she had died, had passed away her beloved grandfather, had she been his grandmother. Perhaps he was not telling the truth. His confused answer showed that he simply did not want to do the task. The guy continued to make excuses that his grandmother and grandfather were divorced, and in general, everything was very confusing in their family. I asked the girls if it was difficult to complete the group task together. After all, he knew that someone from the group got sick. In a calm voice, Leon said that the task was designed for 4 people. She completed it herself. Therefore, only her name is on the list. Hans asked where Amila was. Finally, the girl learned the name of that unrestrained, talkative girl. She reported that she simply did not show up for the meeting, and she had to wait for 40 minutes. And in general, he was the only one of the group who appeared and disappeared at the same time. Laughing, he asked why Amila was now a talker. She used to be a potato. It turns out that now it is a talking potato. After all, he often speaks without thinking. Hans noticed that Leon was good at joking, which he did not expect from her. To which she replied that with friends, one should probably behave that way. If the conversation started about friends, then the guy took the opportunity to ask about the girl with fair hair, who is always next to Leon. The conversation was about Jane's neighbor. Hans remarked that she had a very good name. She is always cheerful, smiling. This is probably his ideal. It would be good to start dating her. Leon didn't like it. Hans, in her opinion, did not suit her friend as a couple. She tried not to notice his look, which begged to introduce them. At that moment, the girl was already thinking about something else. After all, she was satisfied with herself. The task turned out to be not as difficult as expected. She was able to do everything herself and achieved good results. It certainly wasn't her best work, but still, she did it. It is better to do something than not at all. The professor gave her the notebook and graded it unsatisfactory. Not understanding why, she asked the mentor. The answer outraged the girl. After all, I heard that even for weeds by the road, I would have received a higher grade. But they had to, in the course of independent study, collect and systematize medicinal plants from magical places. For this reason, the task was a group one, and she used someone else's help. This is the reason for such an assessment. Kaon appeared there quite by accident, and he did not help her. She collected all the medicinal herbs herself. The girl even refused the spell of displacement. But the herbs that I collected have strong energy. It was difficult to deal with them. It seems that there was a misunderstanding. After all, no one really helped her. It was necessary to understand the situation calmly. The professor emphasized that on the 3rd page of her work, it is about ranunculus. Less than a week ago, the scientific community only learned about the special properties of this plant. He very much doubts that the young student could have known about it. How could she recognize and collect grass that she had never seen before? And that's not all. Plants asphodel, horse chestnut, raspi. You need to have a lot of practice to recognize these plants and collect them. The girl did not pay attention to the fact that they had not yet gone through this in class. She deliberately collected these difficult and rare taxa for the task because she had been familiar with them for a long time. She could not even think that it would be her mistake. The professor watched all the students. It was necessary to understand what to do next. It will be difficult to convince him. It's best to just tell the truth. The main thing is to speak briefly and clearly. Lian knew that her knowledge of medicinal herbs was much better than her classmates. There was only one reason why she hadn't flaunted it before and didn't show her knowledge in class. She would be recognized for such knowledge. Later, they were transferred to postgraduate and master's programs, so she told it like it is. She said that she really did not know that the properties of ranunculus were discovered only recently. She has known them for a long time, since childhood. She had no idea that they were unknown in the city. She told me that she collected other medicinal plants in the mountains, behind the academy, can show their location as proof. Ranunculus has been used exclusively as an ornamental plant for many centuries. You had to be a strange person to study such a flower. Now, the strange person who defended the scientific work on this flower a week ago was looking at another strange person who was standing opposite. In other words, Lian got the professor interested. He decided to check her. He asked if she knew anything about the seahor plant japcho. The answer pleasantly surprised him. Japcho is a medicinal plant that is useful for improving blood circulation and maintaining tone. Its abuse leads to the accumulation of toxins in the body and side effects. It can be used with other herbs to moisturize the skin, but due to the inability to remove toxins, it is not sold anywhere. The professor listened to her carefully and remembered how she slept during his classes and looked out the window. She scored the highest score in the entrance exam. The reason is that she already knew all the material. The teacher, after listening, apologized and corrected the grade to excellent. Lian understood that this is the person who is ready to admit his mistake and stopped being afraid of him. The professor offered to study with him, but the girl refused and quickly left the office. Not much time has passed. Lian's life has become too full of events. In almost every class, Professor George asked her questions and used her as an example to the other students. During the breaks, fellow group member Hans asked to introduce him to a neighbor, which got him very bored and got the better of him. If you look at it, life in the academy can be called successful. Recently, everything has been relatively calm. Maybe it's not so bad. Standing on his knees, Hans offered Lian to arrange a chance meeting with her neighbor. Let's say on the weekend. It would be good if she paid attention to him and praised him. The girl was very annoyed by these annoying requests. Unable to withstand the onslaught, she began to shout at him. At that time, a neighbor entered the room. Seeing this picture, she thought that it was Lian's new boyfriend. A peaceful life was coming to an end. Finally, the time for exams has come. The curriculum of the academy is divided into general education and special classes. Jane, a classmate in general classes, and Hans and a talking potato in special classes. And having so little free time, he had to endure the whining of Hans, who did not give up the hope of meeting Jane. The girl understood that he would not leave her alone. Therefore, I decided to check its compatibility with the neighbor. She asked one simple question and waited for him to choose. After all, once, at the bazaar, she and her friend talked about this topic, and she knew the answer. Hearing the wrong answer that Jane chose then, she slammed the door and left. After all, his and her answers did not match. In class, Lian sat at the desk and talked with her friend about the accounting exam. Jane was upset because she couldn't get the answers right. The professor allowed us to start counting. After that, other disciplines could be brought up, but it was not worth overloading yourself during the holidays. Lian was disappointed that the exams were over. After all the students will go home, only she will stay at the academy. A friend promised to write letters often so that she would not be sad. At that, the girl said goodbye and left. For some unknown reason, Jane cheered Lian on every time she went to the club room, even in spite of the fact that her friend was just going there to sleep. Approaching the door, the girl heard the conversation between Kaon and Fjord. They were discussing the accountancy exam, which had caused both of them to be late to the club. Bursting sharply into the room, she greeted. Karsten smiled when he saw her and kindly invited them to join them. Seeing Fjord on the ceiling, she asked what he was doing there. Kaon joked that his friend was a little tired and decided to rest. When he jumped downstairs, supporting the joke, Lian asked if Fjord had slept. He, adjusting his cape, asked if the girl was also late to the club because of the accounting exam. She answered that she was, because she was trying to get a passing score. For Karsten, this exam did not seem difficult. It was so easy for him that he didn't even count the points. He just passed it and forgot about it. But for his friend, everything is just the opposite. Well, of course, Kaon is a genius. Since childhood, it was easier for him to teleport than to run once more. This requires not only extraordinary magical abilities, but also a sharp mind. Lien asked what Fjord's specialization was. It was fencing. Therefore, only he could understand her. He was promised by the professors that they would mark the papers in the exams, although he does not write them. It turned out that of the three, only Lien was having a hard time. Karjan offered her sweets that someone had handed him in the garden. Not noticing the offer, the girl said that she will not go to the club until the end of the exams, which is 2 weeks away. Although she was not the best student in the class, her passing score was high. She didn't do well in the accounting exam, so she needs to brush up on other subjects. Sitting in the library reading books, Lien reflected that she got good grades in the main course. She just had to make up for everything else. Suddenly, at the table opposite, Kaon appeared. When asked what he was doing here, he answered that he was also studying. Lien asked, at least, to turn the textbook the right way, not upside down. Karjan looked at her with loving eyes, but quietly said that mana is the energy that is the basis of all living things. When the laws of nature are violated, this energy changes, and a monster is born. Mana has 2 basic laws in nature. The girl cut him off in the middle of a word. It was literally like a textbook. Well, he couldn't remember everything so accurately. Lien said that you should look at the book and not at it. You won't learn anything that way. Leaning very close, Kaon asked if she was concerned. Then he offered his help in studying, having said that you can ask him anything that interests you. He didn't really care what the other students thought. From that conversation about their relationship, it seemed that someone deliberately spread such rumors about them as a couple, but it was not clear who did it and why. Lien imagined meeting his parents for the first time. How could they get angry and not accept her? Even more, pour water or hit with a cob. Seeing that she was thinking, he asked about it. The girl put everything down to exams and rumors. It affected her. Looking at his beautiful face, you slowly think about things that can never be. And now you have to think only about the exams. Meanwhile, in the estate of the Duke of Lycia, Karjan's mother was standing by the window and listening to the manager of the latest rumors that were circulating in the academy. Her son became interested in the opposite sex for the first time. As a mother, this was very disturbing, but she would like to know what is really going on.